Ahead on the CFL Report, the big boys in blue who clear the way for Willard the Wonderful. The Ticats and the Argos again. It's Hamilton's turn to win. And Leif Pedersen has a perfect week and looks to make it 2 in a row. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery. Hi everyone, I'm John Wells, and this is the CFL Report on TSN. Week 12, a predictable week in Canadian football. The favorites all came through with lopsided victories. As a result, not much change in the standings, East Division or West. The Lions and the Eskimos are even in points, but BC has one game in hand. The bubble burst for the Stampeders, so the Rough Riders remain within 3 of the final playoff spot in the West. And no surprise in the East, the Bombers are back in the lead by 4 over the Idle Tiger Cats. The Argos are 1 behind, and Ottawa limps along with 7 points in 4th spot. Highlights of all 3 games in Week 12 coming up a little later. First, though, Peter Watts and the CFL Notebook. Peter, some difficult times in Ottawa these days.
They really are, John. Head coach Fred Glick's job is safe for at least 1 more game. The Rider Board met on Tuesday and voted to retain Glick's services. He's in the first year of a 3-year contract. But there is speculation the decision will be reviewed if the Riders lose Friday night in Calgary.
Well, the morning started out kind of rough. In other words, I think it was kind of a surprise in reading the papers, but I think, you know, Paul and I have been in an understanding from the beginning. We're trying to build a team here, and you have to start from somewhere, and I think we have a nucleus of good young ball players. I think we've got leadership. The thing that we both are upset with, and I know everyone else is, we haven't won.
Anytime you've got a 2-win, 8-loss season, I think it's the responsibility of the manager to report to the executive on what the status of the football club is, how well the administration is doing, how well the coaching staff is doing, how well the players are doing. And we've done an assessment of that. I've made some recommendations to the executive that they wholeheartedly support. Certainly with a 2-8 season, you've got to say, you know, how's the coaching staff doing? And I've laid that out. I think they're doing extremely well. We've got a young football team that's got to come along, and we've got to give some support to those young players and to those coaches.
Frankly, I think the Riders have made the right decision. An awful lot of injuries in Ottawa this year have hampered the efforts of the coaching staff to try and make some changes and make some improvements. They have made a couple of changes. James Hood, the wide receiver who was the Shenley East Division nominee for MVP last year while playing for Montreal, was cut loose on Monday night. The Riders are going to move veteran fullback Jim Reed to tight end, hopefully to help the blocking. We'll see what they can do Friday night against Calgary.
And a couple of other players have found jobs in the CFL over the last little while.
Well, there are a couple. Defensive tackle Rick Goltz, who was cut 3 weeks ago by Saskatchewan, is in Winnipeg today talking to Cal Murphy about a job on the defensive line. Goltz would take Stan Mikawa's spot. He's out of the lineup for the next 6 weeks with knee problems. And Brian Walling, a 2-time Heck Crichton nominee, is the best college player in the country while playing for the Acadia Axemen, has signed with the Argos. He's on the practice roster. He won't play on Sunday against Hamilton, but the Argos have a bye after that, so they may try and work Walling into the lineup.
Peter, those salary cuts in Vancouver are still big news just about everywhere.
Well, they are. No news yet as to whether or not the players will accept a reported 10% reduction in salaries. They've created a players committee to deal with management on the subject. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
And a Board of Governors meeting coming up.
And an interesting one, John. They're going to talk about the schedule. They may cut back on the number of league games and possibly go back to 4 exhibition contests because the coaches want more time to evaluate players. But I think the really interesting issue is the question of making the reserve list, the 4-man reserve list, part of the active roster, which means that coaches would have 38 players available for each game instead of 34. The thinking is that they're paying full price for the players now. They might just well put them on the roster and use them.
And that would eliminate some of the changes. At least you'd know the other 4 players well as well. And
all
that
part of the roster.
All right, good point. More from Peter Watts' Endless Notebook on our next edition of the CFL Reports. And coming up in a moment, the highlights from Week 12. Welcome back to the CFL Report. A little later on, the Bomber offensive line, a big part of the reason that Willard Reeves is nearly 3 times better than any other running back in Canadian football in total yards. And the Argos and the Tiger Cats get together again. We'll have a preview of that matchup. Now the highlights. And the favorites all won in Week 12. Not one of the games was even close.
7.
The Rough Riders were thrown to the Lions in this one. Second quarter, Roy DeWalt teams up with Jim Sandusky. A nice 63-yard catch and run, the Lions into a quick 13-3 lead. One of the few bright spots for Ottawa, a 17-yard strike from Todd Dillon to Mark Lewis. That cut the Lions' lead to 13-10. The BC defense, nothing short of awesome. 3 interceptions, 8 quarterback sacks. BC blew the game open, 4 touchdowns, final quarter. Larry Crawford put the icing on the cake with a 72-yard punt return TD, his first ever in the CFL. The Lions win it easily, 55-16. Saturday night at Commonwealth in Edmonton, the Eskimos played host to the Argonauts, a night for Edmonton's special teams. First quarter, Hank Olisic punts. Henry Williams returns for the Eskimos. Williams weaves his way through the coverage, 86 yards, and the Gizmo has his 4th punt return TD on the season. That sets a new CFL record. Edmonton on top 10-3. Last play, second quarter, the Argos for a field goal. James Zachary blocking Lance Chomick, and Ron Howard scoops up the ball. He's gone the other way. Clear sailing for Howard, 95 yards, and the Eskimos led 27-3 by halftime. It got worse for the Argos in the second half. Rookie fullback Blake Marshall in for a 4-yard touchdown. The Eskimos romped easily past the Argonauts, 42-20. And finally to Sunday, the Calgary Stampeders in Winnipeg looking for their 4th straight win, but it wasn't to be. A rough afternoon for Stampeder quarterback Rick Johnson. Sacked 4 times, including this one for a safety by Winnipeg's Mark Seal. Tom Clements, another typically great day. He completed 27 of 38 for 407 yards, including this 43-yard bomb to Jeff Boyd. That made it 12-0 Blue Bombers, and there was more to come in the second quarter. Clements again, the screen pass this time to Lester Brown. Brown gets good blocks from Nick Araki and Jeff Boyd, and he's gone. 45 yards for the touchdown as the Bombers move in front of the Stampeders, 22-0 at halftime. Willard Reeves chipped in with 86 yards on 9 carries and scored 1 touchdown as the Bombers romped to an easy 40-5 victory over the Stampeders. So the Stampeder streak ends at 3 wins. This week they host the Ottawa Rough Riders at McMahon. It should be a little easier. Despite lopsided scores in Week 12, some outstanding individual performances. And here are the TSN Players of the Week.
Very objective in the second.
From Friday's game in Ottawa, BC quarterback Roy DeWalt. DeWalt turned in his best game of the season at the expense of the Eastern Rough Riders. The 7-year veteran from Texas Arlington completed 16 of 32 passes for 368 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Fraction, no doubt.
Saturday night in Edmonton. Despite the efforts of Henry Williams, we'll give the nod to Eskimo quarterback Damon Allen. Allen picked apart the Argonaut defense for 378 yards on 21 completions. Allen also rushed for 59 on 9 carries. Sunday afternoon in Winnipeg, Bomber quarterbacks passed for 452 yards, and James Murphy was the #1 target. The 4-year veteran hauled in 10 passes for 136 yards. The Bombers were easy winners over the Stamps, and Murphy is tops in the league now with 63 receptions so far in 87. Still ahead, TSN's Canadian Player of the Week and Leafs picks for lucky Week 13 in Canadian football. This is the CFL Report on TSN. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Just before we look ahead to Week 13 in the CFL, TSN's Canadian Player from Week 12. A couple of slot backs up for this week's award. The runner-up, Rick House of the Eskimos. The 8-year veteran from Simon Fraser caught 3 passes for 82 yards in Edmonton's romp over the Argonauts. TSN's outstanding Canadian for Week 12 goes to Jan Carinci of the BC Lions. Against Ottawa, Carinci had his best game of the season. The 6-year veteran victimized the Rough Riders secondary for 95 yards on 5 catches as the Lions mauled Ottawa. Jan Carinci of the BC Lions, TSN's outstanding Canadian for Week 12.
Jan Carinci has had a big night.
The unsung heroes in this game are usually found along the offensive line. It's an area of the CFL heavily populated by Canadians. And who better to tell the story than a member of the alumni? Former Winnipeg Blue Bombers center John Bonk knows exactly what life is like in the trenches.
Offensive linemen don't get much of the glory for the work they do protecting the quarterback and opening holes for the running game. Here in Winnipeg, the offensive line made up of Chris Walby, David Black, Lyle Bauer, Nick Bastaya, and Bob Molly have had the fewest quarterback sacks in the CFL. They've also opened up gaping holes for the #1 rusher in the CFL, Willard Reeves. For these guys, known to many in Winnipeg as the White Horses, it's enough to be recognized by their peers.
If we don't get the run blocking, Willard's not going to be able to get his yards, and if we don't get the pass blocking, we're not going to be able to move the ball in the air by throwing it to the various receivers we have. So they're a vital cog in the offense, and you have to have every area of the offense, the offensive line, the backs, the receivers. You have to have every area playing well in order to have a successful team.
All the credit goes to the offensive line. You know, it's those guys who's blocking up front that's going to get you through the hole and everything and get you to that secondary so you can make a couple of moves and maybe go by them.
Winnipeg's offensive line has played well when you consider the fact that 3 of its members are in positions that they have not played before.
We've got David Black, who, because of an injury early in the season, had to move to offensive tackle, left tackle. And then Lyle Bauer moved from the right guard position to center, and then Bob Molly moved from the defensive side of the ball to offense.
I think the other players playing with me have made the adjustment just to playing with a new player on there, and they've had to adjust to me, and plus for me personally, some adjustment, basically patience, and it's working out well. You know, as you play along with it, you know, makes you a more cohesive a group.
Having the experience of all-star tackle Chris Walby and Shenley Award winner Nick Bastaya has helped develop the younger players along the offensive line.
I guess you could say after so many years in the league, there's not too much in the way of defensive systems or sets or blitzing schemes that are going to, you know, I've seen pretty well all of them, and they're not going to give me too much trouble. Blocking them, identifying them is one thing, of course, and blocking them is another, but I try to be, I guess, I try to be consistent in my play, and I try to be a steadying influence with some of the younger players who sometimes might have a tendency to get excited if things aren't quite going your way.
Well, the thing about Nick that I like is being around so long that, you know, it makes it easier for me because he always knows what he's going to do, and we work well together. We call dummy calls, which really screws up the defense a lot, and we're getting to the point where we know what each other is going to be all the time, which makes it nice.
Well, I think we're a real fun group when we get to mix up the plays and run the ball a little bit. We got a great back, and when Tom Clements calls the plays right, and we get to tee off on some of those guys instead of always dropping back and letting them pin their ears back and rushing us. So, you know, there's a lot of things, and we're having lots of fun.
I hear that you call some of the plays in the huddle for Tommy. Is that true?
I call a few, and the play selection's been fantastic, I might add. So I think I'll be reincarnated into another Tom Clements or somebody high paid.
All right, a big match for the Blue Bombers Sunday in BC. It's one of 2 big games this weekend. The Argos and the Tiger Cats will also meet Sunday in Toronto. Mark Jones has a preview of Game 4 in the Eastern Freeway Series.
Thanks, John. You know, Hamilton and Toronto are no strangers to each other. Their next meeting will be the 3rd time in the last 4 games that they'll have gone head-to-head. But don't think they're getting bored of playing each other, because it's still the guys from Steeltown against the guys from down the QEW. And there'll be no problem getting up for this one.
Takes a good shot.
Steve Stapler has had his share of success against Toronto. He's one of the premier receivers in the CFL and should break the 1,000-yard mark in the next game.
And I always get up for that game because back in '80 they had released me. I mean, they had traded me to Hamilton. So, you know, it's no problem for me getting up for Toronto. It's a good rivalry, and I just like to beat them.
We have all the incentive in the world, and had a week to think about it, so we're getting raring to go right now.
Coach Al Bruno hasn't been happy with his team's performance in the last 2 games. As a result, there's been an airlift in Hamilton this week. There will be no fewer than 4 new faces in the lineup against the Argonauts. Middle linebacker Ben Zambiazzi will miss the game with a sore hamstring. Offensively, Hamilton will be looking out for an aggressive Argonaut defense.
But he won't elude the second one.
Well, you try to outguess yourself sometime, but then again, you know, we figured what they were going to be doing was what they did against us. We didn't expect as much blitzing, but you know, we'll have to prepare for that. They did it against Edmonton, had success in the first half, so you know, we'll have to look into that a little bit.
Hamilton lost its 2 meetings with Toronto at Ivor Wynne Stadium, while they won their only game at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. Each team has been a very gracious host.
That's pretty odd because it's usually the home team advantage, but I guess, you know, you get up even more for the team that you're playing at home, and for some reason we've got up for playing over there because, I don't know, it's just something that really has never happened since I've been here, winning in opposite stadiums.
Hamilton has a 3-1 road record. They haven't lost on the road since their first game of the season, so they don't mind hitting the road. If you're a Tiger Cat or a Tiger Cat fan, you won't mind driving 40 minutes down the highway to watch the Tiger Cats play. This is quickly becoming the CFL's QEW series, and in Toronto, they'll be waiting. They know exactly what to expect.
It's kind of like your roommate or something. You see him every day, you know what to expect from him. But the game comes down to who's want the games most of all, because we know what they're going to do, and they know what we're going to do. So it comes down to who wants it more than the other team. And I think that it's in a situation now where they got their backs to the door, and we got our backs to the door, where we have to win and they have to win. So I'm looking forward to Sunday's game. It's going to be a good battle and a good show-out.
Quarterbacking is a concern in Toronto. Gilbert Renfro injured his knee against Hamilton in their last meeting and is still on the shelf. He'll be back in 3 weeks. Rookie John Kangemi has started the last 2 games, but he's been a little inconsistent. But he'll keep plugging away.
I'm doing the best job I can. I'm looking at the film, and I'm doing a decent job, so I'm happy with what I'm doing. I just have to go out and do a little bit more, I guess.
There's a new running back in the Argo fold this week. Toronto signed Brian Walling. He was the top running back in the CIAU in 1986. Walling was a late cut with the Miami Dolphins of the NFL. The addition of Walling gives the Argonauts a quality running back, and the fact that he's Canadian doesn't hurt either.
Hopefully, you know, I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to be on the active roster by the Hamilton game, but, you know, hopefully I'd like to start contributing as soon as possible. And if it is the Hamilton game, all the better. But I'm really going to have to learn the system, and you know, I think my experience down in the NFL has given me some confidence, and hopefully it will show on the field.
Special teams can make or break you. Darnell Clash had his only TD punt return of the season against the Tiger Cats 2 weeks ago. With only 7 weeks left in the regular season, each game is becoming more important.
Well, we hope to take the league in second place, so it's going to be a really big game for us as far as mentally goes. So we got some really big improvement to do as far as the game against Edmonton. So we had a lot of big mistakes that cost us the game, and I can't take it away from Edmonton because they came out ready to play and they did a heck of a job on us. So it's going to be a big showdown for us because we wanted the game to get back in second. They're going to need the game to contain second, so it's going to be a really big game for us.
These 2 teams are so evenly matched, it's tough to pick a winner. But 2 things are for certain. 1, it'll be an unpredictable game. And 2, like the other 3 meetings, it'll probably go right down to the last minute. Mark Jones for the CFL Report.
All right, that sets up the Argonauts and the Tiger Cats. It's easy to pick a winner in that one. It is the Tiger Cats' turn to win because they're playing at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. Is that not correct?
Well, that's the way the last few years have gone. Toronto plays extremely well in Hamilton, and of course the Tiger Cats play well in Toronto. But you know, John, I know when Montreal went down the tube, they had to make some adjustments in the schedule, so you get some problems. But 4 times these teams meeting in 10 or 11 games is too much. You know, it's a great rivalry, but I'm a little tired of this 4 times in one season already.
Okay, you had a perfect week, 3 for 3, but I guess most grade 6ers out there picked these games last week. I mean, you had Edmonton over Toronto, Winnipeg over Calgary, and BC over Ottawa.
Take the knife out now. Listen, it's not how
Cinch picks.
It's how many. Like 3 for 3. I don't care who is playing. 3 for 3. I'm over 70% on the year. Getting a good solid picks. This week's tougher though. Ooh.
This week maybe a little tougher. We'll be back to see how Leif Pedersen sees Week 13 in the CFL. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Leif Pettersson's turn to pick some winners. Remember, folks, he has been hot, hot, hot. Perfect week last week. It is more difficult this time.
Well, sure. We've got a couple of really good matchups this week with Hamilton and Toronto and BC and Winnipeg. The first two games of the week, not that great.
Calgary, Ottawa in Calgary.
Well, that's kind of a yawner. You know, like the poor Rough Riders, you know, if Paul Robson and his team were going out for a life-saving competition, they'd win hands down. But unfortunately, they have to go up and play a football game, and I really don't think they've got too much
All right,
chance.
so it's the Calgary Stampeders winning this one. Do they win it in a walk, partner?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a walk. I think at home they're playing pretty tough. You know what I like about them? They finally got that rushing game going. Now, forget that performance last Sunday in Winnipeg. Forget that one. But this week, they get the rushing game going back again, and no chance for Ottawa.
Stampeders will win the match with the Ottawa Rough Riders at McMahon Stadium. According to Leif, the X is down the right-hand side under that Stampeder helmet. Except one even category for old Dean Dorsey.
Well, it's not Dean. It's Dean or J.T. Hay for Calgary. I mean, flip a coin. They're both pretty good, so give them even on that one. Got to give Ottawa 1X just to make them feel good.
Saskatchewan and Edmonton is the Saturday matchup in the CFL. Those Rough Riders are having some tough times. I mean, not only did they almost beat Winnipeg a couple of weeks back, but they get a whole bunch of injuries, too.
Well, you know, they've got injuries, but you go back to their home opener of the 1987 season when they lost to Calgary.
Rick Warman to Larry Willis.
So that's kind of, the whole season's been like that. They've had leads, they haven't been able to protect, and once again, you go from AstroTurf to natural grass that I think makes a big difference, and they're in Commonwealth, and Edmonton's tough.
Well, you call it even in two categories as we check out the X's on the board, even in rushing and even in special teams.
Well, I give them a couple X's because they have played pretty well this year, but Edmonton should have no trouble at home.
Okay, the Sunday matchups will likely be the highlight of the CFL weekend. Hamilton to Toronto kicking off Sunday afternoon, and as we say, it is the Tiger Cats' turn to win, right?
Well, yeah, we got rid of the two lousy games. Now we get to the good ones on Sunday. And Hamilton and Toronto, they always seem to play well, and they've had a couple of weeks off now to get healthy, get ready. Tom Porras and his crew coming in. Now this could be an extremely close game, and I suspect it'll be like the last time they met in Toronto. Maybe a Ruoff field goal will decide it in the last few seconds.
Now the Tiger Cats were off form the last time they played the Argos.
Well, they were, but I don't know. You can't explain it. They played some great games and they played some lousy games. All I know is they're much better at this point in the year than they were last year, so they'll be all right.
Ticats will win it at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. Here's how Leif Pettersson sees it. Even in rushing, even in the front seven, even in special teams, but the Tiger Cats will win, what, by a field goal?
Well,
by
I
three?
think it could come down to that once again, and Bernie Ruoff's pretty good under pressure. So.
All right, now this is the one I like. Leif Pettersson is going against the Blue Bombers against the BC Lions, presumably because it's in BC Place, and I suppose because the Lions won the last time.
Well, it breaks my heart. This is the first time I've had a bet against my Bombers all year, and they looked awesome last Sunday, 40-5 over Calgary.
They played Calgary.
Yeah, they played Calgary, but it's the first time I've gone against them, and these teams are so evenly matched, and once again, under the dome, you have to give the home team a bit of an edge because Lou Pasaglia kicks absolutely superbly there, and I think he'll be the difference.
All right, well, let's check out the X's for Leif Pettersson. The matchup, Winnipeg at BC. Leif likes, this one's pretty even, but you like the BC Lions just by what, 2-3 points?
Well, yeah, maybe not even that. And I honestly think that it'll come right down to Lou Pasaglia. He will be the difference in this game. Trevor Kennard, you know, he has not played that well this year. So when it comes down to the crunch, give Big Louie the edge.
Okay, Leifer, you were perfect last week. We'll see how you do this week. Join us next week on the CFL Report on TSN and see how Leif Pettersson made out.
TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery.